part of fundamentals. And one of the things that I really like to emphasize is that weapons are an extension of your body. So when we do our forms, the structure and integrity of our transitions, our leg work, positioning is very, very important, because without that structure, when you extend it out with a weapon, everything becomes magnified. Everything becomes bigger and more apparent that there's some misalignment, mistiming of the movements. So fundamentals are very important. Now the hands, when we move like this in the forms, whether it's coming up to an uppercut or coming to an uppercut, or we do a diagonal flying, those are, you can see, are the motions that it's required to do a chop. When the hands go out to the side, or we do a dropping palm like this, or a lao jiang, those are all very important. So when we do an elbow, and we go like this and we fold the elbow, look at how our body has to move. Those are all reference points in everything that we do. So for instance, just taking a movement with a single sword, all right? So we have a broadsword. These are those floppy ones that no one really likes in the traditional styles, but I'm using this mainly so that you can see the direction of movement. So if I'm like this and I chop, the hand elbows have to be in this position. If my block like this and I chop, you'll see the hand has a position. So the position of the movement really ends up as we transition from the leg to the stance. It comes like that. If my slice is to here, it's like Lao Jiang, right? You have Fu, you're slicing like this, or Gungji Kun, you slice like this, where you're here. And then you come back to this position. So that's your waist cut. When you do a waist cut, you have to cut through. So you have to follow through. You can't just stop it here. You have to end it here. So a lot of times when you slice it here, this is your stopping position. But if you were to come around, it has to go around or slice here and then come back like this. So that's what the slice is. It's a waist cut. Now if we go this way, we must have this way. So that's what this is. Okay? Now, because it's a weapon that has two slices, what about chopping? What about when we chop down? So we chop down, the hand has to be here. The elbow has to come like this. When we thrust, it comes from here. So up, like a throwing a punch, and it ends up here. Okay, that's a retraction. It's in the wrist, sink the elbow. So this is, when we do this, our elbows in a position, you chop. When the hand goes to here, or over the head. So you have to develop some flexibility in your shoulder so that it doesn't bind. Okay, now in the uppercut, I brought this up in the other classes, is the uppercut. 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 So what we're doing, come from here, uppercut if it goes with the forward leg, uppercut if it comes from the back leg. When you go like this, you have to practice this movement so you have a circle. Okay, so circular movement or uppercut movement, when you blend it together, it becomes a flower. So flowers are a really, a sort of a fluid, connected movement that goes from right to left side, and it just blends the movement. It's called a flower. Mainly, it's something that's takes a bit of coordination, but it's more for aesthetics. It's for training. You have continuity of movement. So your wrist has to be, you shouldn't over grip the sword, so that when you go like this, you can have an integration of your movement, so you have a circular movement. If it's on this side, it's doing this. It chops on this side, chops on this side. If you're coming up on this side and it comes up on this side, you have to tie it to your body. Now, when you're stepping, it makes it easier to make your transition because you can turn more. But if you're not turning your shoulders and you're going like this, it's really not going to have the effect. Now, at some point, a lot of you end up practicing the double sword. So the double sword is really more of a coordinated movement that you have. So what do we have in our form? We have the horse stance, and we have a leaning stance, a horse stance, and a leaning stance, and we chop. So you see the diagonal strike is like that. Now if I step to here, or step to here, we already know those movements from the tendu-su, the diagonal strike. When we go like this, we have two horizontal hands. Like this, we have our elbows up, like vertical position. So 45 degrees, elbow here, elbow there, here, right? Then we have a position like this, right? So those are positions from what we've learned to move from our body, okay? So if you're practicing this, and you're practicing this on the left, then when you blend them together, you have this. Well, to do a flower, you have to do this. You have to do this. So those two hands that were doing this earlier becomes this. So when you look at the movement, it looks like they're continuous, like the pedals or spokes of a wheel. That's the downward chop. When you do the upward chop, it becomes this. Or alternating it becomes this. Okay, so how do you get out of this turn in the form? It becomes this. Why? Because you have to set up to go here. And that's where, so you have to preset your position and then chop to here or chop to here, to that corner. Okay, so that gives you an idea that your timing between here and here has to go through there. So that's something you have to practice to see where this sword is, to this sword, to this sword, to this sword. So you're here. One. I'll give you a side view. Side view. So this is important because when you do the chop, your elbows have to be in position. You can't all of a sudden get there without setting it up. Okay. So without setting it up, you can't time it with the leg. All right. So that's just a little bit of advice there. Now, we have these movements where you have to go over to the side. So what do you have to do? You have to practice both sides so that you can have either this over the head on both sides or in front of you like this. Okay. So that gives you an idea that you have a right slice at both levels, over the head, left slice, over the head. And because we're moving, there's a cycle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's something that you can actually build into your movements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the waist cut, one of the things that's emphasized that you're cutting. Don't stop here and do here. Get it all the way to here. And then, so the slice has to be, and then it comes around. Then you have a complete circular slice on both sides. So balance and movement has to do with that. Okay. Now, say Chifido, you have this movement. Right? So when you go like this, it goes here. Okay? Right? You go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the left side. So what you have here is the hands alternating. So you've probably seen this flower. We don't have it so much in the southern style, but actually we do have flowers that go like this. So simply, it's just this movement, that's this movement, and you just have to build the coordination for those two things. So when this goes here, you're like that. When this goes here, so that's, your arms doing this. So it's something that you can, keep in mind. Takes a bit of practice because your coordination has to be developed over time. Now these are just basic ideas of what you need. Oh, one other thing inside that same form is the uppercuts with two sides. So we did it with one side when we come up and we come up. Well, when you do double swords, you have to stroke so that both hands follow each other. So you have to follow and follow, follow. Now the coordination of the legs has to be connected so that you're doing that. So a lot of times when you go forward, 1, 2, 3, once you step back, that's where you would start to do this flower. So you go up, 2, 3, on 4, you tie it to that. So you go up, 1, 2, 3, 4, stop. And then you would have whatever movement that follows. So that's something you practice, get the timing. So the timing is the same as the setup that we did earlier. Okay. Now another, we're speaking of flowers. Flowers, what are flowers? So we have the spear goes up, it goes up, it goes up, it goes up. That's a flower because all it is a movement that goes up, it's a movement goes up, and up. So because flowers are sometimes done with turns, your hands have to do this. So one of the mistakes a lot of people do is the hands are too far apart. So you can't get your arms across efficiently. But when you do the flower, you're really essentially going like this. See, really it's just one hand focusing as the dominant hand. So other hand is just sort of guiding it along. Now the important thing is to keep it streamlined. See, then you come back. Now the agility of the hands, how does it move on the spear? You have to cap the end of this here in order to get a good thrust. Okay, so when you do your flower, you have to find the balance point of this weapon so that you know where it's going to go. So when you're up, 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 down, up, and down, you have to have that timing coordination, finishing the circle each time and controlling the movement. So your hands have to be somewhat more supple and more dexterity so that you're not so stiff in the body, okay? Another movement that we have is this movement that we're like this. So you look at the position, you're down like this, you're down like this, right? So you get the beard of the spear to twist. So how do you develop that? You just keep practicing this motion. You drop the elbow, turn this hand. Now you're supposed to sit, turn, right? You're here. You're going to step up, turn. So you have to get your body in the movement the thrust, and then when you step, you pull. Your stance, your turn, your press, your step, turn, step, turn. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, or step, and turn. So the power is really from your turning of your arm and your sinking of the elbow and your torso. Your torso has to be involved to create the action. So that's what a spear ton is like this. Okay, another movement that people have a little trouble with, when you're in this position, your goal is to send it up and then catch the end of the spear here. So simply, when you pull back, push, it goes up, and it comes right back. So it's like you have a string on the end, goes up, comes up. The faster you do the movement, so you don't hesitate. Don't be afraid to send it. You have to send it up straight. So you have to time the movement from here. 1, right? 2, comes right into your hand, and then you would make your next move. So that's something you can practice. Put it there, right? 1, 2, right? Here's the spear. Now you're going to take it, you're going to lift like this, and it's going to come right to your hand. Just try to catch it. If you have the ceiling height, try to catch it as close as you can to here. Okay, so I don't know how the ceiling height, but you have to go from here, catch, up, okay, and then you would drop it and follow up. Okay, so that's really, some of the things. When you're taking the spear across, just like you would do a stick, this has to be eye level. This has to be shoulder level. Okay, this is depending on your position. Okay. Another movement that you may have a little trouble with is when you take a movement and you do that. So the timing when you're here is just taking the movement and turning. The power comes from when you sit into the stance. The action goes to the tip. So your whole goal is to get everything to happen up there, but it happens here. So that's what you practice. If you were to do this, you would stop here, then you would stroke down and sink. So a lot of these movements is just part of your timing and your position. But you notice when you're like this, that's a 45 degree. You're poking, toward the left. So it's in your body. If you're doing a stick form, it's like this. When you're doing this, okay, you're here, then you sweep across, you flower, bring this foot up, step down, poke. So you see, there's timing and imagery in your position, because when you're here, this is in the 45-degree line. This is coming here, this is coming here. Step, sink. So, while you're developing that, depends on how long this is. If it's a very short, then, it's like this. Because of long, you have to extend it more, because your accuracy of position really relies on how you judge the eye and distance. That's the perception you develop. So, those are some really fundamental movements inside the two weapons. That double weapon is really an extension of the single weapon, so that makes you work the opposite side. Notice another thing that you may not realize, or you haven't heard it. When you do the stick form, you're on the right side. When When you do the spear, your left side is forward. When you do the stick, the right side is forward. Okay, you notice that? The left is always in front. Why is it like that? Why is it always on the left side when you do this? Because this side is your power hand. Now, all the traditional arts work more with the strength side on the right, because traditionally, all of the old cultures thought everyone should be righty. Now, today we know that some people are lefty, but you still, even though you're lefty, you have to learn the weapon on the right side, because that's how the sequences and the forms are. So even though you're lefty, if you do this movement on the right, you're actually going to develop your right side too. But the movement will end up happening the way it's supposed to be, okay? So, as I said, when your hand is here, you're here, and then you turn. So your body has to develop that action or this action. So you have to practice in both stances, because it happens differently at different times. So on that note, you can practice the fundamentals that we just did and put it back into the form that you already may know, and then you can actually improve your form. Now, doing forms in this format is very difficult, because we have a lot of viewers that are just starting out, or they're just watching for interest. There's some people that already know the form, and there's some people that would like to learn the form, but it is, pretty complicated to teach a form for people that are at all these different stages. So it's really a lot harder to do. In order to learn a form, you have to have a specific class building that form, like we sometimes do with the intro forms. But on that note, I think I'm going to put this aside for now, and I think we have another 10 minutes. So with that other 10 minutes, I want you to focus on realizing everything that we do is tied to the legs. Everything that we do for the legs, in order to tie with the legs, is your body. Okay? So fundamentally, we have the diagonal strike. That's where your chop is. So if you go through your form and you do something like the Logakun form where you're like this, there's your slice. Okay? If I cut up like this, there's your uppercut. But look at the body alignment. You have to go to your center line. Okay? You go to your center line. If I want to switch to go to opposite side, you go to the center line here. Now you look at my hands. This is without the weapon, but the thing is, if I go like this, 1, 2, this hand has to lead, this hand has to follow. You go like this hand leads and this hand follows. So you have to build that type of coordination in your movement so that you have right following, left following, one leading, one following. Gives you integration of your body, because if I step like this, I have to move this hand, and then it finishes. If I step like this, just look at this as a transition. If I go uppercut like this, and I'm going to step up, I'm not going to do this, I have to have my hand here. If I step up, I have to keep this here to protect what's going on here. So when I'm here and I turn, you're always in a position of strength, or at least structurally sound, so that you have to put, the definition of that movement into some type of a application or functionality. So the hand that does this, it's really a figure 8. So a figure 8 is very important to define as to both sides, right? If I go like this to the corner, you see that I have a lift and a lift. So that we have this in Fukfukun or Gungjikun, where I strike like this and I go like this, I'm like this, and then I'm like this, right? Isn't that the sweep? I'm here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's really finding this position, all right? So when we're here, this comes across, right? 1, right? 2, 2, right? This is capturing the arm. You're taking the arm, you're coming in over the top, and then you're coming down and you're sweeping into the stance as a drill. to strengthen your leg and the support. But when you sweep, you only have to go to here. And when this foot goes like in the Bangbo Kuen, it's opposite and the arms are like this. So just think of this. If my arms are extended like this, how much strength do I have here? Unless you're going to just use it as a chop, you really don't have much strength. So to apply this sweep, you have to be close enough for your opponent's leg to be here, and then use this part of your arm to do the takedown. If you're going to use this part of your arm, you're not going to have enough strength because it's only designed to fold. Now, if I go like this and something comes, I switch. You don't resist the movement, you switch. Okay, so that's why you should not have too much excessive tension in your joints when you go through your movements, but find your posture. Find your posture. Find your posture, right? Find your posture. So when you're here, 1, 2, 3, right? 1, 2, 1, 2. So you build that coordination, whether it's right or left side. So in the form, we don't have a right side sweep, we have a left side sweep. But you can, what's the main reason for that? Because most people probably have a stronger right leg, so you would sweep with that hook with the left. But if you're practicing and you have balance and movement, then you should be able to do both sides. So that really gives you the idea that coordination, like when you're doing double swords, how do you get the coordination with double swords? You build that into the motions you already have from your previous form. So that gives you another idea as to how valuable, how important it is to do your forms. And as you do your forms long enough and you begin to understand the body mechanics of your movements, then you start to realize how that body mechanics works into some of the other movements that you have. So essentially, that's cross-training. And cross-training is what happens up here, that you can identify with the movements because a lot of it is already programmed into your body. So the long-term practitioner will get a value out of this. For the newer students, you see how the capacity, the capability of learning movements that you never thought even existed. And then for the people learning it, we can pick up on the strategy of outdoing and work toward improving it so that you can build all these intricate motions into the body. So there's a tremendous value to prevent age-related degeneration. There's a tremendous value to learning how to use your body efficiently and very natural. So on that note, I think we're almost up to the time. 2 minutes, okay. So, if you have any questions, if you like that, you can give us a thumbs up. Follow us on the different social media that we have going out there. You can access us in many ways. But I just hit upon what I think sometimes are obstacles that a lot of students or practitioners, whether it's the same style or another style tuning in, when it comes to weaponry, sequential things are what make the difference is the style and some of the characteristics, but the essential movements, the basics, the fundamentals, the foundation movements are all practically the same. So you get good at one technique, it can carry through to some of the other forms that you're doing. And that's, how we evolve. Because eventually, if I put these movements and compartmentize it as a strategy for specific movements, categorizing them, a lot of the movements will start fall into categories that you may not have realized, and then everything starts to click in and it gets much, much easier. But as you can see, when I do these movements, I'm not wasting a lot of energy doing it, and I'm not huffing and puffing, and I'm not exhausted with doing a series of flowers because I'm not really putting a whole lot of physical strength into it. I just put the amount of strength it takes me to get the movement going. It's sort of like, going up a hill with your car. You use all that energy to get it up there, and when you get down on the top, it doesn't take you a whole lot to go down the hill to sustain the speed because you have momentum and you have gravity, you have all of these things working with you. So your movements in your body are working the same way. You have gravity, you have naturalness of movement. The idea is to get your musculature to do what it's supposed to do when it's supposed to do it, So that's timing. And you also get your body to recognize there's some stuff that doesn't happen that shouldn't be there, that would impede the movement. So what is that like? That's like going down that hill after you get to the top of it and want to free fall, but then you put your brakes on it. What does that do? It neutralizes some of that energy, and it also slows you down. So just think of not putting your brakes on and the movements that have to be fast, and release the brake. So that's a balance in timing. So all of that is just information for you to work with and toward a better goal. Okay, on that note, I'll see you next week. This is Saturday. We have a good weekend. Stay safe, and abide by the rules that we've been prescribed.